This movie here, Peter has got Shell Oil and the Alberta government going to do tests on my place and the neighbors and the other two guys' places and one of their neighbors for microbial activity, living things under the soil, above the soil. There's going to be carbon tests, water infiltration. I don't even know all the tests. But if you go on the internet and click onto it, every time you click on, it helps him get money from these guys. That's kind of how he's, because there's no chemical. You just Google carbon cowboys. Because there's no chemical company or anybody gonna put any money into this because, so, and last year I treated 20 head, well this year the 800 I treated 5 head. So the healthier the soil, the healthier the animals get. Any questions? Foot rot or pink eye. And another thing that's happened with all this moving, I break the fly cycle because a fly only flies 5 to 7 days in adult, flies 100 feet from the cow pie he was born in, and he lives for 45 days, and that's 80 days plus where I'm coming back to where they are. So I break, you can hardly find any flies on my hands.
You can have mine.
Neil, do you do anything to feed to the animals preventative for pink eye at all, or just feel
Just healthy soil. The healthier, the higher the sugar content. I'll got some pictures I'll show you here later what happens to the grasshoppers eat the thistles, because if the sugar content gets too high, they can't digest it in the plants. So when you get high sugar content, they go after your weeds and peel them off.
So what's making the sugar?
The sugar
Yeah.
is the healthier soil, like the healthier your some plants are. You take a refractometer and roll it in a ball and squeeze it out, and it'll tell you how high your sugars are. If you get over 12, you'll have less sickness in your calves. It helps in the milk. I've had as high as 28.
You're constantly moving your cattle, so how do you follow up with water?
The first thing you gotta do is put in a pasture pipeline, because as soon as you get better water infiltration, all your pothole, we're in prairie pothole country, all your potholes dry up on you and you start growing grass in them. And then eventually the water cycle will turn around, but and another thing I do is I put alleys in, 28 feet, anything wider. You're right, you gotta take one home or something.
Right, yeah.
Anything wider than 28 feet, she'll try to beat you back to the herd.
Oh, okay.
28 feet, you don't have to get off the quad. So, and I use all those alleys. I hardly have a gate in the farm.
Okay.
And if I want to move from one place to the other, I use an alley, because if you got it, I move to the next paddock that's ready, not the next paddock. So you just put a lifter in and a bungee cord, so they got to go the one direction, and then lifter and a bungee cord, so they got to turn in, and you just do that and you go home.
Great.
It's got to be easy.
I know, yeah.
It's, neighbor told me if it was going to be lazy, get good at it, so
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Where was your farm located? Sorry.
Down in the southeast corner of Saskatchewan, 30 from the Manitoba border, 60 from the States. Moose Mountain Provincial Park.
And so it's all perennial, or are you doing some annual forage as well?
It's all growback. Like, we were a grain farmer, and the most I spent on seeding anything down was $2.94. Seed companies don't like me because I used to be able to get a free 50-pound bag of seed, but when you spend less than a pound the acre,
Yeah.
and I don't do it all over, if the wind's coming from that way in the wintertime, I seed this way, I'll go 100 feet or so apart in strips. And because of my long recovery times, everything goes to seed and it goes across the whole farm. On the home half section, they told me I couldn't put the stuff on top and the alfalfa and seed it in. You can't do that. So I did 1 acre. The whole half section's got alfalfa on it now. From 1 acre. Work with nature instead of against it.
The cows are likely spreading it too a bit.
Yeah, they're eating it and there's seeds and
So how many days a year do you graze?
100 to 120 for the yearlings. And then I got 2 cow calves.
So for those of us who aren't predisposed to be good livestock people year-round, I run a small grain and oilseed operation, but we custom graze on 1/4, and I've been dabbling with, in my plow down year, making the adjacent quarter section of plow down land custom grazing, but I don't know really what the right forage blend for an annual beside my permanent custom grazing pasture would be.
Here's an idea, instead of plow down,
It's great, and I'm using
you
it
saw,
as graze down.
you saw the cocktail mix that Gabe got?
Yeah,
He does that, instead of plow down, he's producing more bushels of corn per acre than the county average is with no fertilizers and no sprays now. He used to use them, he's weaned himself off, you can't just quit cold turkey, you gotta wean yourself off. And he's got more bushels per acre, and, he said it was under, I think it was under $2 a bushel of corn. They call it a deep massage, I call it a deep massage, I know how good I feel after a deep massage. And what I did was, I can't remember what all the pictures or not, but I'll explain it first. In the spring, I have stockpile grass from the year before, I only graze it once. I'll give them an acre, 800 head on an acre, they clean it off like this indoor-outdoor carpet here. Then I'll roll a bale, skip a bale, roll another one across the field, I figure out how much hay they need. Then I'll come back and roll a bale where there was no bale before, so I get lots of animal impact. And then I'll give it, instead of 80, I went to 123-day recovery, because by eating it down that short, you shut the whole system back down, because all the roots die off and go into the soil, you feed the soil, so you gotta give it a longer recovery time. I'm finding it doesn't really matter how hard you hit it. If you hit it really hard, you've got to give it a longer recovery time. Recovery time is the key to the whole thing. Everybody seems to fail at that. Everybody, I did too, everybody doesn't leave enough recovery time. Oh yeah, and there was 50 to 60% more root mass when I did the deep massage. See how much more litter there is on the one side than the other where I did the bale grazing? Or not bale, the deep massage. There's what I like to see is the soil is all crumbles, it looks like cottage cheese, it soaks up the water like crazy and holds it. 06, there's where I did the deep massage. In 2010, there was about an inch of topsoil. And that's because I'm leaving so much litter on top. And earthworms are recycling it. And they keep recycling it, so I'm building it up. And then I'm also building down because my roots are dying off. When I hit it, they die off, and then I give a long recovery, so I'm feeding the whole system. Okay, this here,
What makes the roots go down?
everything, if you look at a plant, the higher your plant goes above, the higher they go, or the deeper they go. And the way we've worked our land for years with the cultivator shovel and the plow, I don't have one in this, but you'll get a hard pan where the cultivator shovel went, and then down where the plow went, that would be another hard pan. And the guys at Bismarck there at the research station, you dig up their turnips, or actually long, is a turnip the long one? It'll go down, hit the hard pan with a cultivator shovel, turn sideways, find a hole, and goes back down, and like that. And you've got to have some of those plants to break that up. Now, with this system, the first plant that's going to break your hard pan up is foxtail. It can be a good sign or a bad sign. It's the only one that will, along your road where it's really packed hard, it's the first plant that'll come in. But if you graze it right, hit it before it goes to seed head, it'll go through the hard pan and soon you'll have grass.
What soil class are you in?
I don't know, where are we in? No, okay, yeah, brown. A lot of rocks, we got rocks to hold it in place. So, oh yeah, just ask lots of questions, because I'll answer them with pictures here. Okay, this here was a straight crested wheat field. Can't figure out how I've got the picture before. It was a straight crested wheat field, and I did this deep massage on it. And this is 1 year later. I got 111 ADAs. An ADA is an animal day per acre. There's enough feed there to feed 123 yearlings for one day or one animal for 123 days. Whoa, okay, I'm dyslexic. Read what's on the screen. I got 111 ADAs, so there's enough feed on that acre for 111 animals for a day, or one animal for 111 days. That's how we just figured it out. That's our carrying capacity. So when I started this, it was about 23. So here's improvement. But what happened was, in this straight crested wheat field, 2 years later, I had I had over 40 species of plants that the cattle would eat, and I've had 40 native species identified on my land now, and I think it was 123 ADAs that went up to, yeah. So that's a straight crested wheat field there. And another thing I'm finding is soil temperatures, where we do higher stock densities. The soil warms up quicker in the spring by about a month, and it stays warmer a month later in the fall, and in the summer it doesn't get as hot, it stays cooler, so you're not losing the evaporation.
Why do you think that it warms up earlier in the spring?
Microbial activity, all the living things in the soil. Okay, both sides here, same stock density, same everything. That's where the fence was. This side over here, we drove back and forth while we were getting ready to take them down the road. So they walked back and forth, so I tramped more in. Now, it doesn't matter, one side isn't any better than the other, it's just different. I think that's the only picture I got. But on the right-hand side, you won't get as much snow capture. On the left-hand side, you will. So it depends where the right-hand side, all your manure will be tramped in more, you recycle things faster. There's no right or wrong answer. You gotta figure out what your goal is. There's more thinking in this than going to the local guy and he'll sell you something. Here's what happens to all your plants. That's alfalfa, or sorry, brome grass. That I don't get it going to seed head like I used to. I found those with 18 and 15 leaves now, so they're capturing more solar energy, they're putting more carbon in the soil, and that's happening because they're not stressed out. They're not making seed head. That's the reason they put the seed heads down, is they're stressed out. Okay, the one side here has between 800 to 1,000 head on an acre, and the other side has 10 to 15 bulls. Does anybody know which side the high stock density was on? That side? Yeah. It's the same creek, same water and everything. It's just
Is that a boxtail on both sides of that fence, or did they graze that boxtail out?
they grazed that. There was Canada thistle. This is a creek, and I get it from the neighbor, and he made one year with his sprayer with the Roundup. He went out across, just on the corner here, it was all Canada thistle, and I grazed it out. But he's starting to stay wider now. But
See, they will graze that Canada thistle if you make them eat it, right?
oh, no, they'll graze it. 2 years I'll be rid of Canada thistle. I'll eat it when it's coming to bud.
Yep.
And it stresses it out. Weeds can't handle stress. I haven't found, the only weed I'm having trouble with is absence, and I think I've got a way to beat it too. Every weed does not like to be stressed. Here's what happens to your Canada thistle when you get high sugar. They can't digest sugar, they haven't got a pancreas, so they go after the low sugar plants. That's my Canada thistle. They don't touch my brome and alfalfa and all of my other grasses. And they also bloom right after dark. How are we doing for time?
So how much quack grass are you getting in there?
I don't know, I don't tell the cows what they're eating, I just, I really, there's everything coming, like there's a native bluegrass showing up more and more all the time. As long as it's green and the cows will eat it, I don't care what it is. But this bluegrass that's coming, all the experts tell me there's no such thing as a bluegrass, but I got a lady in the Moose Mountains there, she used to go seed native seeds, and she says there's a bluegrass, and it doesn't show up till a month and a half ago. It starts turning green. You'll never see it early in the spring until late summer, and then it'll show up and it'll be green all winter underneath the grass. And right now, before the frost, the cattle will eat it before they'll eat alfalfa. It's got high sugar late in the year, and they just get fat on it. I really don't know. I don't know my different plants that good, but
How come the grasshoppers eat the Canada thistle? Because it has less sugar in it than the grass?
less sugar.
Okay, how come the Canada thistle doesn't have high sugar? It's grown in the same dirt.
Yeah, I don't know why it is, but it's why it doesn't produce the high sugar. And the other weeds don't seem to either. But I've been to 2-3 other places that are doing this now, and we're all finding the same things. Doesn't matter whether you're here to Mississippi, we're all finding the same things. You've got to adapt though your recovery to your area. Like you may be 10 miles away, and your recovery can be different. Like what I'm doing now, I couldn't do what I started with, or I'd be going backwards. Everything keeps
changes.
It keeps changing, so, yep.
Jill Clapperton, I'd heard her speak before, and she was encouraging farmers to, if you were gonna do other amendments and add something to it, spend that money on seed to have a wider polyculture rather than spend it on fertilizer or something else when she was talking. So do you augment your population, the stand, with other things? Do you introduce it, or do you just let come what wants to be there?
I can't afford that.
Okay, well, part of
Because
that's the
I don't have
economics.
time, I gotta see what's growing.
Yeah.
I've got bags of seed, like I've had companies give me bags of seed, I got a bunch of seed at home, I gotta get spread because the mice are getting into it.
Yeah.
It's just, you look after your weak link, and my weak link is not growing grass, it's having enough cattle there, so I gotta spend more time on, make sure I got enough cattle to take care of the grass that I do have, so there's no sense spending money on grass. But,
How do you set up your water on those really small paddocks? Do you make them walk down a lane to a water
yeah, they
trough?
got legs.
Lakes.
No, legs.
Lane.
My cows got
Okay,
legs,
so
but
but
when
you-
I was started, they
Yeah.
told me I had to have water risers every so far, because
Yeah.
cows do better with the water close. They got legs, and I
So-
feel like eating better when if I have a good walk. I don't like walking, but if I do some walking, I can eat a better meal. And that's another thing, I sit back and watch the cows as they walk to water.
Yeah.
And if every once in a while you see them take off running, skipping and bucking, you go catch the sugar, check the sugar in your grass plants. It'll be high. They're just like kids on candy. And if they just plod along, you go out there, it won't be. Another way to tell, I do bricks. I can't come to that picture.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Are you grazing in the winter, or are you winter feeding?
The yearlings, they leave after 100, 120 days. My cows, I'll graze them as late as I can, like to the 1st of December, then I get them in. And then as soon as it's ready to go in the spring, they're early and everything off.
So you're feeding them for 100 days or something?
Yeah.
What are you, bale grazing out on
Yeah,
those?
bale grazing.
What kind of gains are you getting on your year?
It's all over. And depends what they send you. Like last year, the cattle were really fat when they came in because it was such a hard winter and they didn't a lot of gains. I haven't heard what my gains are yet, but he said everybody else is coming, I've had as high as 1.7 and down around 1. It all, if the guys send you cattle, they'll send you good cattle to start with, then they'll start sending you cattle that have got testicles that have just come out and they're dripping blood. And so there's so many variables. I'm starting to go to so much per day. And that,
What are you putting, 6 steers out there? and-
Well, they're supposed to be 5 to 6, and they come home closer to 8 last year. So what I went with last year was one times, like 60 cents. Weight, so that's point. Okay, I'm dyslexic, I do everything backwards.
Sure you're not
Points.
Ukrainian? 'Cause I do everything backwards.
No, I know there's no Ukraine. Bit of German, English, and Icelandic. Yeah.
How do you know when you have enough recovery, when your grass is recovered well enough?
When it's come full maturity, yeah.
Oh, you don't graze until it's full maturity?
Yeah, very well full maturity, like the.
Even brome grass?
Pardon?
Even brome grass?
Brome grass, I want it just heading out, and the flower, like the little flowers on there,
Flower, yeah.
it will have higher sugar content than alfalfa. Meadow brome, the only good thing I got to say about it is it's good for ground cover. The cattle don't like it. You check their manure goes, like I like a good shit all the time. I want my cow pies piled up and that. You hit that stuff, it's spread out all over. You check the pH, it's not, nothing's right. Okay, this picture here is where we deep ripped. I cut my production in half where I deep ripped, and 3 years later the sugar content where I deep ripped was lower than right beside. There's where I deep ripped.
What do you mean by deep rip?
The subsoil?
Yeoman's plow, you ever heard of that? It's like the subsoil, like you go down and it's 2 feet apart. I wouldn't do that at all. I've got.
It actually ripped the land. They
I-
say it's
it
good for the
sure didn't help.
No, I guess not.
I would have went belly up if I did the whole farm to look like that.
Yeah.
But what I did, what I'm finding this year, we dug some land up here a bit ago, and dock and some of those weeds that were there before, we dug up, and there's roots as big as my little finger going down, and they're real bright red color, and they're just like a sponge, and you pour water on them, they just go straight in. Did I tell you how much my water infiltration? I told somebody. Okay, the water infiltration 6 years ago was 7.5 minutes for an inch of water to disappear. Last month it was 2 minutes for an inch of water to disappear. So my carbon should be going up with my water infiltration. Okay, I better get going.
Do you make your own hay?
No, I buy it in. There's one of those roots right there. There's what we did. There's another one of those roots going down. Okay, I got it. Okay, when you first start out, you'll get your
Dandelion.
thistles, dandelions like that, thin leaves. The healthier your soil gets, then you start getting great big ones.
So you don't worry about dandelion population? Is it not a sign of overgrazing or? No? Okay, good. That's a
Because,
relief.
no, as long as, if they're small, it's a sign that you haven't got healthy soil.
No,
And when your soil gets healthy, they start getting like this. But when they're not needed, what they've done their job, they start disappearing on you.
See, that's been worth my money just for this last 60 seconds, because I was gonna turn down 2 of my paddocks because of dandelion population.
Oh
Just
my God.
praise them at the right time before they.
Cattle like them.
But they look like that.
Yeah,
They're,
okay, you're headed the right direction. If you got little ones, you gotta add fertility, but.
it's just in the spring, it's just, my vanity comes over, because there's a lot of yellow.
If you get a beekeeper, they'll love you, because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
one of their first pollen sources.
Here's 2 things I use, is the pH paper and the sugar. I check my sugar. And I think the next picture, you can do away with both of these. No, sorry. Look, I'm gonna go back. What'd you do there? Just, I'll tell you a bit. Okay, this here, if you check your sugar content and your pH, if it's right on, when you drive into the field with your quad and then leave the field, your shit should stick to the tire, and it should fly all over the place when you're driving on down the road. If it doesn't, your pH and stuff will be off.
So you're telling me that you're looking at the back end of the cow, you can tell your pH by the
The way
By the
the
manure
shit, yeah, I look for good shit all the time.
So it's good shit, it piles up, it doesn't spread out, it's not
Yeah,
loose.
if it's bad.
So when the shit flies, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
What's the name of that instrument on the regular gauge?
right, that's a refractometer, back to your roots. They sell them, that's one company, I don't know who else. The winemakers use them all the time. That
So,
there-
okay, so you measure it,
Yeah.
but then what do you do with that information? What's your remedial, I want more, I want less pH, I want more sugar, then
You wanna
what's the
keep your
point?
pH around 7.
Right,
And some things you can do is you can add oil and sugarcane molasses. And within 24 hours, if it's real money, you put that in a lick tank. Their manure will start stacking up, and when they go to water, they'll be skipping and jumping. It adds energy to it. Now,
okay.
this here is, okay, last year the oil company had to reclaim a site. They took their site and they put the dirt on there, and they ended up buying twice as much dirt as what they figured they would. Well, what they did was, they spread it on there, then they went out and cultivated it and cultivated it and harrowed it and harrowed it, and they had it like powder. Well, healthy soil is all full of roots and air and everything, so it took them twice as much. Mine, what was left, this is on top of a gravel pile, so you got some foxtail, I'll be rid of it next year or two. That's because of the hard pan underneath, but see how deep green mine was? Theirs, they wouldn't let me eat it off this year. I've ate this off twice this year. And theirs, the way theirs work. Most of it is weeds.
And you didn't seed anything there? It
Not
just-
on my side, they seeded a whole bunch of seed here. I didn't seed any seed. It's all there. So just work with Mother Nature and she'll give it to you.
You don't get no volunteer clover, right?
That's an early succession plan. I might on the other place next year, but it's one of the real early succession plans. The clover will come, and then as the land gets healthier, it disappears and there's other plants take over.
But if you'll break your hard pan out.
Yeah, foxtail's the best. It's the first one. Yep.
Are you finding wild vetch coming into your pastures? Purple
Yeah, there's
vetch,
wild vetches, there's all kinds of things.
Because I found that at home when I stopped working the land and let the cows graze it, infrequently the wild vetch would come in as a legume in among the grass.
Yeah, do you have any black medic?
Yeah. you
Yeah,
gotta
it'll
stop
show up.
too.
It
Yeah.
was real short to start with, now it's
Yeah.
like this.
Is that a
Every-
good grazing plant?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
got, it puts down nitrogen.
You're not a cow calf man.
Anything that the cows will eat, just don't tell them that it's weed.
You don't raise.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Thank you very much. And if anybody's got questions, just text me out there.
Thanks so much, Neil.